Hi, my name is Nolan Jimbo. I'm an assistant curator at the MCA, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Moby Dick or the Whale, Wu Tsang's silent film style retelling of Moby Dick by Herman Melville, which will be live scored by the Chicago Sinfonietta. The screenings will take place from February 14th through 16th, beginning each evening at 7 p.m. in the museum's 300-seat theater. There will be a film projected onto a huge projection screen, and then the orchestra will be staged in front of the screen. The story of Moby Dick, for those who might not remember from back in high school, tracks the voyage of a whaling ship that leaves from Nantucket in Massachusetts and sails throughout various oceans in search of an albino white whale named Moby Dick. The story is really fueled by this vengeful and increasingly maniacal desire of the ship's captain to seek revenge against the whale who claimed his leg during a previous expedition. So the film is silent for the most part, but the visuals are incredibly lush and sensual with these deeply saturated colors. The film is going to be scored live by an orchestra, so there's this really dramatic kind of liveness to the film that is rare when you experience cinema. Wu Tsang is an artist who makes films, video installations, and live performances. Her work often spotlights these hidden histories related to marginalized subjects like a queer Latinx bar in LA or transgender activists and figures like that. She's won a MacArthur Genius Grant in the past, and her work has been shown all over the world, but most recently at the Guggenheim in New York, the Venice Biennial, and at SF MoMA. Currently, she's based in Zurich, where she is a director in residence at the Schauspielhaus Zurich, a very important theater. Wu became interested in Moby Dick through kind of a circuitous route. She was very inspired by a post-colonial analysis of Moby Dick by a Trinidadian historian named C.L.R. James, who wrote this text in the 1950s called Mariners, Renegades, and Castaways. Upon revisiting Melville's novel, Wu was really struck by how much the book kind of unexpectedly resonated with our contemporary moment, particularly through its engagement with themes like colonialism, ecological crisis, and queerness. She also, at the same time, began to look into these lesser-known maritime histories, which sort of discussed how the ship would attract sailors from all over the world, and so the ship would therefore become the space of cultural exchange and even in some cases, like revolutionary politics. And all of this finds its way into the film. So Moby Dick is definitely a kind of unexpected pivot for Wu, at least upon first glance. Wu's previous projects address themes like queer nightlife or trans activism, right? And as difficult as Wu's practice is to encapsulate, I think, though, a through line is her engagement with the kind of power dynamics of the voice, like whose voice is heard, whose voice is silenced, and who speaks on behalf of whom. And in this instance, Wu is sort of inhabiting the canonical voice, really, of Herman Melville and sort of offering her take on this American classic. So I think it's through this idea of the voice that this project actually relates to Wu's other work. So a central theme in the work, and kind of the elephant in the room when it comes to Moby Dick, is the theme of colonialism, because this is, after all, a story of a ship captain attempting to conquer a white whale. Other key themes include queer intimacy, these sort of dynamics that emerge between crew members on the ship, and then also this idea of abstraction, which is sort of a technique that Wu uses to address these huge ideas in the film, like capitalism, colonialism, and ecological crisis. So the work was made at Schauspielhaus in Zurich, where Wu is currently serving as a director in residence. It features a cast of around 25 actors and was filmed entirely on a soundstage where they actually built a ship on set and also generated simulations of the ocean using virtual reality technologies. The film itself is silent, but I actually think, in a way, the orchestra, live scoring, the film becomes sort of a metaphorical reflection of how Wu is re-enlivening or reanimating this historical text. This sense that you're, I don't know, breathing new life, per se, into a more historical document. I think she's also kind of trying to connect the timing of it, like when silent films were being made or like at the beginning of movie making. They both sort of emerged in the 19th century around the same time. aligning that timing with this sort of 1851 moment of this novel. So Moby Dick or the Whale debuted in March 2022 at the Schauspielhaus in Zurich, where it was produced, and since then has been presented at the Shed in New York, the Venice Biennial, the Holland Festival in Amsterdam, the Open Air Festival in Sydney, and then more recently in California at Stanford University and Hauser and Wirth in Los Angeles. Wu's collaborators are incredibly numerous, but just to name a few, the artist Tosh Basco, who stars in the film and who co-founded the artist collective Moved by the Motion with Wu in 2013. They're a collective that actually performed at the MCA previously in 2014. Her collaborators also include performance studies scholar and really legend Fred Moten, who is also featured in the film. And Wu also collaborated with composers Caroline Shaw, Andrew Yee, and Asma Maroof, who composed the orchestral score that accompanies the film. So the MCA decided to present this work for a number of reasons. I think, first of all, we are longtime fans of Wu. And as an institution and as a curatorial team, we're always trying to offer, when possible, long-term support for an artist at different stages of their career. Wu has a deep connection to Chicago. She is an alum of SCIC, and she also performed here as part of Moved by the Motion back in 2014. So we're really excited to be welcoming her back. Secondly, the actual content or the themes that are addressed in the film feel all too timely. These ideas around colonialism, queerness, ecological crisis. In some ways, this film hopefully will, give audiences maybe the sense that these issues that we're all confronting today have a longer history and hopefully can inspire people to maybe address or think about them differently. And then lastly, this project is unique because of how interdisciplinary it is. And a lot of artists and museums toss this term out a lot these days, but for this project in particular, it really does meld literature, film, music, installation, performance. As a curatorial team, we're really interested in the direction that a lot of practices today are taking in this interdisciplinary direction. So that was another reason why we were really interested in it. This project is really interesting in this moment also because museums and maybe culture at large right now, we're really reckoning with how to deal with canons or these already really highly regarded, highly studied movements or artists or texts in this case. Moby Dick or the Whale really addresses the canon head on in this very unique way, literally by inhabiting the text itself and offering some kind of alternative version of it. So hopefully this piece offers us a way forward in really addressing this very pressing topic of what we do with these histories that we've encountered or inherited. This work is really interesting to me because of the way it uses abstraction. We've inherited this sort of framing of abstraction, typically as it relates to painting, that abstract painting has nothing to do with social realities or the world. It's really framed as an escape or kind of individualist expression. But in Wu's film, she uses the technique of abstraction to really get at the unrepresentability or the scale of these huge ideas like capitalism or colonialism, the sublime even, in ways that really add to understandings of what abstraction can do today. My favorite part about this, so I'm, a curator who was trained in art history, and my projects take the form of both exhibitions and performances, but I haven't had the chance before to work with a proper orchestra. And so just learning the technical aspects of producing, I just feel like my skill set has expanded so much. My respect for all the planning that goes into an orchestral performance is now through the roof, and it's really just been such a learning process for me. Not to throw another buzzword out there, but this is really an immersive experience. And there are a lot of so-called immersive experiences out there today that really only draw on your tactile senses. But this is also a project that engages with rigor, your kind of intellect, but also feeling as well. There are these moments of intense silence that the orchestra creates that are really affective and moving. That's really what the liveness of the orchestra gives to the project. When they stop playing, it's almost as if you haven't felt a kind of intense silence like that in a long time. It really creates this stark contrast. So in addition to being a like super sensorially active project, it also draws on your mind and your soul. And I think there's very few experiences like that today that are out there.